This lesson is called A Cry for Justice. Okay, so we're in this series in Sunday school about a faith that matters. And at first, I wasn't sure how this lesson fit into this, right? Because like Deke mentioned last week, all of the other lessons come from Luke. Okay, this is the only lesson that does not, and it doesn't deal directly with faith. It's just kind of dropped in of what they call a special focus. And so as I was studying, I figured out, of course, as always, this lesson was timely and it did fit the theme. Okay, so the issue is, guys, we cannot, without faith, it's impossible to have hope in unjust situations.
Yes.
And we live in a world that is full of injustice. Yes, okay, and so we felt like the psalmist at any time, so we'll see. Okay, go to the back. So the psalmist, guys, we'll see how he begins on focusing on the problem more than the solution, okay? And that shapes the whole psalm. What I love most about this psalm is that it really gives us like an inner view of the mind of the psalmist. And so, guys, Psalm 10, it was believed to be written by David, okay? And the reason why they said this was because Psalms 3 through 9 and 11 through 32 were his. So 10, it doesn't say it's specifically his, but it makes sense because it's right in the middle of all the others that he wrote. And it also fits David because from what we know about him, he's a man of action and he has a warrior spirit, right? So David, out of all people in the Bible, if he heard of somebody that was being treated unfairly, he would have been the one that was upset enough to try to do something about it, okay? And as we read this psalm, it has a lot of strong language that is very possible that David used. So this lesson teaches us a few things, but the biggest thing that it teaches us, guys, what I would hope our takeaway is that our perspective is important. The perspective that we choose is important. So let's jump in. The first part of the lesson teaches us that the wicked pursues injustice. Okay, so Psalm 10, verses 1 through 4. Verse 1 says, "Lord, why do you stand so far away? Why do you hide in times of trouble?" Now, this psalm starts off with questioning God why. Right? Now, I was raised that you don't question God.
No, you don't.
You just don't do it. Right? But I'm thankful that it started off with this. And one theologian said it this way: in times of trouble, it's not the trouble itself that makes us anxious. It's the inactivity of God. So, you know, we all get into some scrapes, right? But if we don't see that God is moving, that make you nervous, right? Because your help, we know that's where our help comes from. So to not see him, to not see his hand, it makes us anxious. So it's a couple things that I got from just this one verse. Sometimes maybe God's inactivity at times is because he's trying to see what we're going to do. He's trying to prepare us to do something, right? It reminds me of the movie Ray, where, you know, as a child, he started going blind, you know, and his mom, she was a young single mother, and she wanted to make sure that, you know, when she was long gone, he would be able to be independent as a blind man. And so he starts going blind, he falls on the floor, and he calls out for her, and you can see where she's about to go and help him up, but then she stops, she pauses. Because she wants to see what he's going to do on his own. So he stops, he listens, he starts feeling his way around. And then finally he says something like, "I know you were right there. I could hear you," right? And so, guys, sometimes I wonder if God has just stopped, just like his mom, like Ray's mom. It's not that he's not there. It's not that he doesn't want to reach out a hand and help his children. But he's pausing because he's trying to see what we're going to do.
All right.
And a lot of times we cry out for help during injustice to God, but what are we doing?
Come on, that's good.
How are we helping? How are we intervening? It's so easy to point the finger about what leaders should stand up and what politicians and all that should do. But guys, we got power too, especially as the church, right? So sometimes I'm wondering if God is just pausing just to see. And then another thing is, like I mentioned earlier, there's this notion that a lot of us were raised with that you can't question God. Now, for me, when I learned that, you can ask God some questions. My deepest conversations with God, the ones that solidified my relationship with him, began with a why. asking God, why is this happening? What's going on here, right? And just like the psalmist, he wasn't questioning God's sovereignty. He wasn't saying, hey, God, why? He wasn't even questioning God's ability.
Right.
He was just questioning God's presence.
Yeah.
He was saying, why are you not here, right? And so, guys, we can ask God these questions, right? Good relationships, they come with some of the difficult questions, right? Verse 2-4 says, in arrogance, the wicked relentlessly pursue their victims. Let them be caught in the schemes they have devised. For the wicked one boasts about his own cravings. The one who is greedy curses and despises the Lord. In all his scheming, the wicked person arrogantly thinks there is no accountability since there is no God. Guys, it's a few things a lot of things that we learn about the wicked in these few verses. The first thing we learn is that they pursue victims relentlessly. Guys, when you think about the word pursue, there's some intentionality behind that. That means that the wicked, they're planning the bad things that they're going to do. And when it says that they're pursuing relentlessly, it means that they don't stop. They are always up to no good. They're always seeking to do evil things. And guys, one thing that taught me is that as believers, this is why we can't take a break. And we love taking hiatuses, right? Once we were tired, we did too much, or even after a mountaintop experience, we think, I could take a breather now. You know why we can't? Because the wicked don't. They don't take a breather. They're relentless. So that means we have to be relentless in our praying, relentless in our fasting, relentless in our fellowship, right? Because we got to have something to combat this. Amen? Another thing it teaches us is that the wicked is arrogant. They feel that they got a right to do these wicked things, right? They are so prideful that they feel that the evil things they do is acceptable somehow. That's some crazy stuff, right? I'm sure some of us have seen some serial killer documentaries or whatever where you just like, wow. Because in their mind, they are right in what they do, right? The last thing, and probably the most significant thing we learn about the wicked, is that they believe there is no God. And it's that unbelief that is the foundation of their wickedness. They believe that they're not going to be held accountable to God because there is no God, right? Guys, be careful about people who avoid accountability. Be careful of people who avoid consequences. It's not saying that those people are automatically wicked, but it's saying that they'll do anything, right? The wicked, void of accountability, it's chaos. You can do whatever you want because who do you have to answer to? Be careful of those people. So guys, the psalmist, he literally continues verses 15-11. They're not in our lesson, but he just goes on a rampage talking about the wicked, right? So guys, the psalmist is experiencing something called righteous anger. He's upset, and he got a right to be upset because he's saying, Lord, when I look around, it looked like the wicked is winning. Right? They just getting away with all kinds of stuff out here. The victims, they are helpless. They can't even speak up for themselves. And the wicked are just trampling them, and you're not even doing nothing about it. And we might look at him and say, ooh, who he talking to? But guys, we have asked similar questions, right? God, why is this happening right now? Why is there so much turmoil in the world? Why do we allow a pandemic to take out so many of our loved ones? We have all of these tough questions for God, right? But the good thing is that we ask them, of course, like I said, in a respectful way to respect our relationship with God. Because guess what, guys? The answer to all of those hard questions, we got the same answer. And that's that God does what he wants to do when he wants to do them. Okay? So it don't hurt to ask the questions out of hurt. Sometimes even out of anger, righteous anger, but just know what the answer is, okay? Again, guys, the amazing thing about this psalm, and we're going to see how it shifts in a minute, we see this psalmist processing, right? He starts off this conversation with God, questioning him, venting about the wicked, and then we see where he starts shifting to the end where he's going to answer his own question. Okay, so I love that. But keep in mind, guys, the whole first part of this psalm, verses 1 through pretty much 11, it focuses on the problem. It focuses on the wicked. Okay, So when we focus on the problem, guys, just like the psalmist did, it looks like there's no hope for the victim or God's people, right? It looks like the wicked are winning, and because we don't see the punishment, it looks like they're becoming victorious. But let's keep looking. So the second part of the lesson in verses 12 through 15 teaches us that the humble cry to God for justice. Okay. The psalmist says, "Rise up, Lord God, lift up your hand. Do not forget the oppressed. Why has the wicked person despised God? He says to himself, you will not demand an account." Right? So guys, when he's saying, God, rise up, lift up your hand, he's saying, get him, right? Get him, whoop him, right? But guys, it's a couple important things here. So he uses three of God's names. Okay, so when he says rise up, Lord here is Yahweh. It's important that he uses Yahweh because it's a reminder of the covenant with God and his people, right? And remember, when you think about the covenant, this is this unbreakable bond, but it also speaks about the personal connection that he had with God. It's a reminder also of all the times that God delivered his people and punished the wicked in the past, right? So by him saying Yahweh, he's reminding himself of who God is. He's saying, God, I'm close to you. I know you. I know your works. I've seen you deliver. I've seen you punish. Right? He's reminding himself of who God is. And then in verse, when he says God, in verse 12, he uses El. But then in verse 13, when he says God again, it's Elohim. Right? So guys, El is short for Elohim. But that's a reminder that this is the God of power. Right? So guys, I love that song, Something About the Name Jesus. Here, this is where we see the shift. He goes from complaining about the wicked to then calling out God specifically by name to say, God, I know who you are. I know who you are. We focused on the wicked already, but now let's focus on who God is. He starts shifting his perspective to the solution, right? Guys, sometimes, and that's why I don't like the English language sometimes, because in our ignorance and possibly arrogance, we've limited our own vocabulary, right? Now, in the Hebrew language, they had so many names for God, right? Peace, joy, deliverer, right? They had all of these specific names that apply to each and every one of us at different times. But right here, the psalmist, he had to remind himself, God, you're a God of this personal connection, and you're a God of power. And because I know that, and because we got history and I know your history, I know you're going to deliver.
All right.
I know you're going to punish the wicked. Even at the beginning, it didn't seem like it. But I just got a reminder when I said your name. I know who you are. I know what you will do. Verse 14, he says, but you yourself have seen trouble and grief. He's talking about God. Observing it in order to take the matter into your hands. Again, guys, he's working through the answer here. He's saying, God, now at the beginning, he was asking God, why you hiding? But now here in the middle, he's saying, I know you see it. I know you care. You're not hiding. You're observing. You're trying to see. You're taking a step back so you can see how you want to deal with this. And guys, this was a lesson to me. What the Spirit dropped on me when I was studying this was that we can't judge the way that God punishes. Okay? God punishes how and when he decides fit. Okay? And so sometimes it may look like God is inactive when he's dealing with the wicked because he ain't whooping them like we think he should whoop them, right? We just want him to wipe them out, right? We want to see the whooping. And God is saying, no, I'm going to get them how I get them, right? And for each and every one of us as believers, I guarantee if you think back, there's a time in your life where you got a whooping from God, and to everybody else, it may just seem like bad luck or whatever else, but your discernment lets you know, no, this was my whooping. Okay? Because all of our whoopings look different, right? God, the good thing about God is he knows how to punish us in a way that's effective to us personally. It reminded me of growing up with my siblings. You know, my mom, she couldn't even give us all the same punishment because for each of us, it didn't work the same, right? Preston, my brother, he loved whoopings. Right? He loved them. It seemed like he tried to get them as many times as he could. But the thing was, the reason, and we, you know, we talked about it now growing up. We could laugh about it. Back then it wasn't funny, right? But to him, the whooping was temporary. It's like, okay, she gonna whoop me only for a little bit because she gonna run out of energy, right? And so when she whooped me and talked to me and give me the lecture, I'm done and I can, go on about my day. The whooping only gonna hurt for so long, so I'm okay, right? Now to me, you couldn't whoop me because I would just have a fit, right? But so my mom learned that for Preston, she had to give him a punishment. She had to take away his things because that was what was effective to him, right? To me, I love punishment. Because you can take away the TV, radio, all that other stuff, and just put me in the room and I'm going to read the whole day. So now that it was like my vacation when I got on punishment. So when my mama figured that out, she said, no, that ain't going to work for you, right? So she knew exactly what to give us to be effective so that we wouldn't do whatever it was again. Right. Guys, God knows each and every one of us way better even than our parents. Right. So he knows which whoopings work, right? So we can't look at him and say, well, he's not punishing. We know that he's sitting back and he's observing because he's trying to see how he's going to respond. Yeah. Amen. So let's just keep that in mind. The rest of verse 14 says, the helpless one entrusts himself to you. Mm-hmm. You are the helper of the fatherless. Right. So this just reiterates, guys, that God helps all. He sees all, and especially those people that can't help themselves, right? When it refers to the fatherless, that's the person that's like without guidance, without that covering, right? It's saying God is that for us when we don't have it down here, right? The last part of the lesson teaches us that God is the one that will bring justice, right? Psalm 10, verses 16 through 18. I'm sorry, 15 through 18. This is a crazy prayer here, okay? 15 says, break the arm of the wicked evil person until you look for his wickedness, but it can't be found. Woo-wee. Wow. That's a prayer right there. Yeah. Right? And before we judge this psalmist, possibly David, we done prayed some prayers like this too. Yeah. Right? This one of those prayers like, God, get him. Get them better than I can get them. I want you to get them. Right? When he's saying break the arm, and he's saying break them to you, they not even evil no more. He's saying destroy them. Shatter them, okay? And the significance of this, if this is David, is some theologians suspect that this could be around the time that he was running from Saul, okay? So before he was king. Mm-hmm. And so if this is him, and remember, David, he was a warrior, right? Let's be clear. David, he didn't beat lions, bears, Goliath at this point. And so the fact that he's asking God to intervene would mean like, God, look, I know you can get him better than I can get him. I know I can get him, but I know you can get him better than I can get him. Yeah. So get him. Right? Verse 16, the Lord is king forever and ever. Again, guys, if this is David, this is important to note because remember, at this time, this could be the time that Saul was king. Yeah. So what he was saying is, God, I don't care what's going on down here. I don't care if even the rulers are wicked. I know that you are king. Your rule is forever. It does not matter who's over down here. Guys, that's a message for us. Yeah. It does not matter who the next president is because these candidates are looking kind of rough. Okay, it doesn't matter who the politicians are. Yeah. We know who rules forever, right? He goes on to say the nations will perish from his land. Again, guys, this is a reminder even of the Canaanites. Remember who were in the promised land and God got rid of them. They'll perish from this land. Yeah. The wicked will eventually perish from God's land because this is his, right? So it's a reminder. Verse 17, Lord, you have heard the desires of the humble. You will strengthen, or some other verses say, prepare their hearts. You will listen carefully. Guys, this is good. When it says that you heard the desires of the humble, this is very different than saying he hears the prayers of the humble. Because the prayers, that's usually the things we utter, right? But to hear the desires, that means he can even hear the things that I can't say for whatever reason. He can hear the things that I can't put into words or that seem so big and scary to me that I wouldn't even say. He hears those. He hears those that for whatever reason I'm scared to speak. He hears it. That's good news, guys. And then the last verse says, doing justice for the fatherless and the oppressed. Again, talking about the people who can't help themselves, how God is there for them, how he hears and he provides justice for them. And it says, so that mere humans from the earth may terrify them no more. I love where it says mere humans from the earth. He's saying they ain't got no power.
No.
When it's saying humans from the earth, it's a reminder that from dust we came and from dust we will return.
That's right.
How are we going to be scared of dust?
Right.
We can't be scared of dust,
Nope.
right? And our God is over that, mere humans, okay? So, guys, that's good news. What I want for us to take away from this, like I said, our perspective matters. Notice that from the beginning of the psalm to the end of the psalm, it looks very, very different, doesn't it? Very, very different, because we've seen him process from the problem to the solution. And so notice, by the end of this psalm, the problem didn't change, did it?
No.
The wicked is still here, ain't it?
Sure.
Even to this day, the wicked is still here. So the problem didn't change, his perspective changed.
Yeah.
He begins focusing on the wicked and the problem, and it seemed hopeless, didn't it? But then towards the end, we see he shifts that perspective to the solution. And there's where the hope is. Guys, you want to know how to be victorious on this Victory Sunday? Change your perspective. Stop focusing on the problem. Because like the book says, if we focus on the problem too long, it'll lead to spiritual exhaustion.
Yeah.
Right? We will be, yes, we have to see the problems because we got to know what we need to work with.
That's it.
But if we focus too long on that without focusing on the one that can solve it,
Come on.
we'll be lost.
Yes.
We'll be hopeless.
Yeah.
Right? So guys, let's focus on the solution. A last example. It drives me crazy when people will ask that question about, do you see the glass half full or half empty?
Wow.
And it will confuse me growing up because both of them is true. Right. So I never understood until now, right? It's all about perspective. Yes, the wicked still exists. That's true.
Yes.
God definitely exists. That's true.
Yes.
Who do you want to focus on? That's the question I leave with you. Amen.
All right, well done. Praise God. Well done. Good morning.
Praise God.
All right.